Record. And then let's get started. We'll start the webinar and hopefully Shea will show up. Welcome, welcome everybody. We're just getting started. We'll wait for a minute for everybody to show up and then I'll hand it over to our host.
Thanks everybody for coming. Oh, hey, Shea is in the audience. Can we promote her to the panel? Suzanne is on it.
I'm on it. All right, I think we've got everybody. Hi.
There she is.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Making an
to the
entrance.
panelist side. Welcome to the dark side.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
All right, I think we can get started. I'll just invite the attendees. If anybody has questions during the show, there's a Q&A button. That's where you put all the questions. And Mandy and Shea, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I think Debbie was gonna introduce me and Shea, and then me and Shea were gonna introduce the panelists. It's a whole thing.
Okay, Debbie, then go for it.
It's almost like we planned it. All right, so our
It's spelled Shea, but it's Shea. It just doesn't have the hyphen in it.
I'm Shea though.
Oh no! Oh my God! This is the first. This is the.
We're gonna do some dancing here, so we got it.
Yeah, Shea is my co-chair on the DEI committee, and you are Shea, our fabulous guest.
Oh my God! Like I'm so used to people like calling me Shea that I'm like.
We have had so many meetings about this. I'm not even kidding. There's a whole thread in the back channel on how we are going to pronounce everybody's names.
Oh, I love that. My booking agent was just calling me, trying to make sure I was ready for the panel. I was like, no, I'm on it right now. I'm just like secretly talking on the phone. I'm like, I'm in it now. And then I hear Shea and Shea this. I'm like,
it's me. Like I'm leaving. These people.
We would never.
No.
And if we did, please correct us.
Debbie, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I do. Hi guys, my name's Debbie Hennessy, and I am on the DEI committee for SONA, and we are super excited about this panel. And I am going to just quickly introduce our two moderators, Mandy and Shea, and then they will get started with the rest of the introductions and start asking the questions. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to have read a little later on, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. Okay, so Mandy, who goes by Fat Mandy, is a cosmic jazz cabaret vocalist, band leader, events producer, videographer, poet, freelance sideshow marvel, music educator, occasional cellist, and social justice agitatrix. Did I get that right?
Love that.
She regularly appears with her jazz group, the Cultural District, the Lemming Gospel Choral, appears with, directed by Pastor Derek Tynes, and Social Justice Disco, a collaborative music project with Liz Berlin. She performs live approximately 100 dates a year in nightclubs, theaters, educational facilities, private events, and festivals. She was voted the #1 best local jazz act in the Best of Pittsburgh City Paper Readers Poll of 2021. Fat Mandy has been called a jazz provocateur and she sings and duets her original compositions and eclectic repertoire of standards in English, Spanish, French, German, and Hebrew. She also works as a vocal coach to young people through 2 musical programs, the We Rock Workshop, directed by Liz Berlin of Creative Life Support, and formerly the Afro-American Music Institute, directed by Dr. James Johnson and his wife, Pamela Johnson, currently celebrating 40 years in existence. She serves as a social media coordinator for the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit. Her private vocal studio, Fat Mandy's Temple of Creative Empowerment, helps students increase vocal agility, strength, and creative confidence.
Debbie, we'll keep the intros short so we can get to
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
panelists. Yeah.
And so Mandy basically just kicks butt. Shea is one of our stars. Shea and Lawson is the managing attorney at the Atlanta-based intellectual property and entertainment law firm of Lawson McKinley. She serves as co-chair of SONA's DEI committee in addition to 2 consecutive terms as a board member for the Atlanta chapter of the Recording Academy, aka the Grammys. As co-chair of advocacy, Shea has been recognized by Billboard magazine as a top music lawyer, and her work protecting clients has been featured by Black Enterprise, Rolling Stone, The Hollywood Reporter, Atlanta Business Journal, and Essence. Prior to launching her law firm in 2016, Shea worked in varying capacities across the DEI landscape as a thought leader for organizations seeking to recruit and retain diverse talent and clients. She is an alumni of Hampton University and Case Western Reserve University College of Law, and holds a certificate in minority political leadership from the Grace E. Harris Leadership School at Virginia Commonwealth University. Take it away.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much. Debbie has really been just so helpful in getting this all together, and is a very important member of SONA. And we're so happy that she helped us bring this event together. My name is Fat Mandy. Call me Mandy. And Shea Lawson is our co-chair, and she is a different person from Shea Diamond. So just, Lori, thank you so much for being on it and defending the pronunciation of Shea's name. So yes, Shea is here, and she is fabulous. And I'm just gonna say, we're gonna ask our guests to tell us about themselves, in their own words. So yes, Shea Diamond is here, and we're very excited about her. Her a cappella performance of her song I Am Her at the Black Trans Live Matter event caught the attention of record producers, and she is currently kicking BUTT. Our other guests include, I always said, Shea, I'm not sure where you're from. Where are you from? You're gonna tell me.
Yeah, from Memphis.
Perfect. So she hails from Memphis. And then we have from Toronto, or Toronto. Toronto is apparently the Anishinaabe name of what the rest of us call Toronto. So Ray Spoon is a non-binary performer, composer, music producer, and visual content producer, director, and author. They've produced 10 solo albums and toured internationally over the past 20 years. Founded Coke's Records in 2015, and they have a record coming out. And Donny Donnovan is right here in Pittsburgh, PA, where I'm at. And he is the lead singer, guitarist of indie grunge band Harkin. Their first album, Help Me, was released in 2019. And we also have here today from Nashville, Tennessee, Cidny Bullens. And he is a 2-time Grammy nominated career, taking him from singing backup on tour with Sir Elton John to Bob Dylan to Rod Stewart, 3 lead vocals on the Grease movie soundtrack. And he's got a Trans Electric hit My Life as a Cosmic Rock Star coming out June 6th. And everybody's got exciting projects, but I would like to open up the questions. So let's start with Shea, darling. Could you please introduce yourself and tell the audience what you would like us to know about you, and tell us your pronouns, please.
Okay. Well, my name is Shea Diamond, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. and sometimes goddess, when you're feeling, a little unworthy. A little bit about myself is I'm a singer-songwriter. I just so happen to be trans as well. And focal points are I'm just making music that is of our times, that speaks to our time. And so I like to have music that actually speaks against the things that are currently going on with TGNC people.
Can you clarify what TGNC people are for those of us who don't know, please?
Trans and gender nonconforming folks.
Thank you. Wonderful. Um, Cidny, darling, would you please introduce yourself and tell us what you would like to know about you and what your pronouns are?
I'm Sid. You can call me Sid. Sid Bullens, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And yeah, I've been in the music business as a singer-songwriter, recording artist, performer, etc. for almost 50 years. And as you noted, I started out big.
You look great.
Thanks. And I've been doing it for a long time. I transitioned 10 years ago, actually 11 years ago, late in life. And it's a whole story that's now in my memoir that is coming out in June. So, but I'm a trans advocate. I am transgender, obviously. I used to be Cidny Bullens, and I do use my dead name because it's my whole career, and I've had 2 kids and so on. So I have grandkids and all that stuff. So my past life is my life. And but I am transgender, and I am a trans advocate, and do as much as I can for our community.
Thank you. Ray, please, would you introduce yourself and tell us what you would like us to know about you and what your pronouns are, please?
Sure, yeah. My name is Ray Spoon, and my pronouns are they, them. And I live part-time in Toronto, part-time in Montreal in Canada. I've kind of lived all over Canada. I'm a transgender non-binary performer. I came out in 2001 when I was 20, which was a while back. And yeah, I've just basically been lucky to spend my life making music for a living, writing books. And I run a record label for underrepresented artists. Most recently, I had a cancer experience during the pandemic. So I'm putting out an album called Not Dead Yet in August, which is really exciting. So I was really happy to put that together. And yeah, I'm really interested in advocacy for trans non-binary folks, as well as for folks who are immunocompromised and disabled folks, which I also am. So yeah, especially during the ongoing pandemic. So right now I'm trying to explore how to make more space for folks like me, not just me, folks who are also non-binary, trans, and or disabled, to still engage the public with our artistic work. So.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's really awesome. Donny, my friend, I'm so happy that you're here. Please, will you? I'm happy everybody's here, but I'm happy you're here because
Yeah.
But could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you would like us to know about you and what your pronouns are?
So, my name is Donny, Donnovan. My pronouns are they, he. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I play guitar, and I am a songwriter, singer in the band Harkin. I've been part of the queer community since I was 18 years old, but I came out as trans when I was about 28. And I've been on HRT for almost 2 years, and I am focusing on redeveloping my vocals for my next album or EP. So I haven't released any music yet after being on HRT. So that's something that I'm really excited to share with the world. And I'm also a personal trainer, and I do gender affirming personal training.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, I'd like to open up this conversation. Then, we would like to know if you all would like to tell us a bit about your journey on becoming yourself. And I'm not sure if we should go and keep going in order, or if we should just go back and forth and let people talk as they like. Do you have a preference on that? Does anybody have a preference? Should we go in order or should we just start talking? The question is, are you comfortable talking a bit about your journey to becoming yourself?
Let's just open it up and whoever
Sure.
is ready to go, just go.
I'll go, I guess. Again, my name is Sid, and I transitioned late in life. And I mean, if you're asking about my trans journey, um, and I mean, I always knew, and stop me, go like this if I go too long, because I want to hear everybody else too. Um, I knew when I was 3 years old, I was a boy in a girl's body. And I became an androgynous, I'm jumping here. I became an androgynous rock and roller. I was one of the first female rockers in the late 70s, and was noted for that, was called the female Mick Jagger, and so on and so forth. Had a couple of records out, and had some success. And but because I was androgynous, and men were androgynous back then, but not so much women. And because I played electric guitar and jumped off pianos and looked like a guy, my record company didn't like that, and they wanted me to look more like a woman. And I had multiple incidents like that, and I finally quit the business, to be honest with you. And I got married and had kids. I bore 2 babies, and one of them passed from cancer at 11 years old, and that's a whole nother story. But so I hid for a while, and then I came back because I'm a musician and a songwriter, and had to do my music. So I started doing my music again. Then my daughter died, and that's actually what brought me back into the music business for real back in the late 90s. And after writing some music after that, and I became more of a songwriter and an artist. And then I'll try to make this short. In 2011, when I was 60 years old, a friend of mine, a younger friend of mine, who I was working with in another capacity as a mentor, transitioned. And I completely just went, oh my God, maybe I can do this even in late life. And at that time I was divorced, and my daughter was grown up. I had a grandchild by that time, and I thought, who am I living for? And it makes me tear up just thinking about it. And it was a struggle to decide if I was going to blow up my life, because I had a career, I was working, I had a family, I had been Cidny Bullens for my life. And but I couldn't not, once the door was open. And so I did. and it's been 11 years now, and it's not been easy. Let's put it that way. It's been fantastic and wonderful. I'm married now to a beautiful woman for 5 years, and I have 4 grandkids, and they all love me as their grandparent, because I was grandmother to 2 and grandfather to 2. So it gets complicated, but I'm here, and it's a tough time for us right now. And my mission now, other than making music and writing my story and telling my story, is about the trans youth. I just want to give everything I have to advocating for trans youth right now. So.
Well, I'm
that
sorry to
wasn't
hear
too
about your
long.
daughter, and that was very inspiring to hear that you've known since you were who you were since you were 3, and at 60 years in decided to go for it. Finally was able to. That's amazing. I'd like to hear from some of our other panelists. Anybody?
Well,
Yes, yeah.
well, I guess I'll go. Nobody's running out, so I guess I'll go. I I'm Shea Diamond, and as early as I can remember, just like Cindy. Did I say that right?
Sid,
Sydney?
you just call me
Sid.
Sid.
Okay,
Yeah.
just like Sid, I I knew around like maybe like 3 or 4ish, you know, I know I got disciplined a lot, around like 6 and 7, on moving forward, because I was too effeminate. And so there was nothing I can do that wasn't punishable by just being myself. So for me, I couldn't take it anymore. So at like 14 years old, I ran away. And so I had nowhere to go. I was just figuring myself out as far as how I fit into the world and how I belong and do I belong. So I was struggling with suicide and you know, just like just trying to figure out, why am I so bad? What makes me so bad when I give so much, I love so hard. Um, and I just couldn't process that. So at 14 years old, when I was getting disciplined for one of my parents finding, like male, you know, things in my drawer, it was just like, I can't have this in my house, get out of my house, and told my siblings, very derogatory things about me. And what people out in the world call a queer people. So it's nothing new. It just so happens that it was happening in the household. And for me, I felt like it was like 14 years of just like being in prison. um, so I ended up this night that I was running away. A friend of mine was like, "You can't run away. It's a talent show." And so was trying to talk me into going into this talent show while I had nowhere to go. I literally had the clothes on my back, which was no shirt, no socks, and going to a school to perform in front of my peers. I was just like, oh my God. And he was like, if you go into the talent show, I'll let you know this youth center that you can go to, this youth shelter. And so I did, I performed Tevin Campbell, Can We Talk, know, and it was a good response. For me, my whole life, the only thing that fit me in was music. People knew I was different, clearly, just by mannerisms. Who I was is who I've always been. And so but no one talked to me except like during lunchtime when I would sing at a table, all like the songs, our favorite song, childhood songs. I would sing those at the table, which started a whole massive trend of like singers singing at lunchtime. So students look forward to that, and so we end up having like competitions and things like that. Now moving back on to actually running away. So I stayed in the system when they asked if I wanted to go back home or if I wanted to be a ward of the state, because I didn't have any support, like people coming in to see me to try to work on the relationship within the system. I I said I want to be a temporary ward of the state. So I went into foster home. I was going from one foster home to the next because nobody wants a queer child. Nobody wants a trans child. Nobody wants a child that's 14 years old, and so these were the things I was going through. And so for someone who felt already like I wasn't wanted, it was very, it's very heartbreaking to kind of be thrown about and saying that you don't belong here, you don't belong there. So around 19 years old, 19 years old, I believe, 17 maybe, 19, I was emancipated. And so from there, it just went downhill. I was incarcerated in 1999 to 2009 in a male's prison for attempting a armed robbery, which in fact wasn't armed. It was my finger, but I was charged so, and so I spent 10 years in prison. That's where I started to find out more who I was and how alone I felt. I realized that I was so much more than just this one entity. I was everything I was looking for. So all the things I was looking for on the outside, I realized I can be that on my own, that I didn't need all this support I thought I really needed. And I just needed to believe in myself because nobody else did. And so I started writing songs while everybody else was out on the yard, lifting weights and doing whatever, talking to family members. I started writing and I started writing my thoughts, and not in the song format, but just like almost a testimonial of my life, what I went through, what I'm going through now. And if anything happened to me while I was in prison, that people would know my story, and hopefully my story could help someone else that was like me, who felt alone, felt like an outcast. And so what I ended up started doing at some point was I started like humming like a melody because I had a dream. Had a dream I was on stage and I was singing and all this old stuff, which seemed so surreal at the time. I'm like, there's no way, because my whole life I had been programmed by not only family and friends, but also by society, that being who I am would limit who I wanted to be. And so I always had that in the back of my head, and not thinking I was worthy, having an imposter syndrome, like my whole life, even after success. So but I was like writing these songs, and then I like found a melody. I was like, you know what? There's an outcast in everybody's life, and I am her. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, hold on. If I say that again, wait a minute, if I add a little hum to it. And so what ended up happening was I sent a collection of what was at the time poems and semi-songs to the Library of Congress to be for copyright. And I knew when I got out, I had to be ready. And so, I had nothing else to lose. I spent 10 years in prison. So I had this scary world that I was about to go back into, knowing I wasn't going to have support, knowing that, people probably forgot about me, moved on with their lives, all this so great stuff. And I was coming out to nothing. So I tried to prepare myself as much as possible. I changed my name in the inside. I got my songs, copywritten under, the current name. I started to go on parole, and I realized that I didn't have as much support from society either. I couldn't get any financial support like food stamps or anything. So, things kind of got a little complicated. I went into survival mode. And so I couldn't get into colleges because they said at 18 I didn't sign up to be in the service or something. And I was just like, first of all, they didn't want gay people in there, so damn well they didn't want no trans people to be in there, and so I ended up going through that and explaining that. And so I got into college, took up, cosmetology, acting 1 and 2, and all this so great stuff, looking for my place in society. And I was told that because of my criminal record, that I could take all these courses, I can do all the work and take my final exam and still not get my certification, my diploma, or anything because of my criminal record. So I got discouraged. And so for me, I said, I need to get away from Michigan. Michigan is where it all happened. I said, I need to get away from Michigan. I need a fresh start. It's time for me to start going out for this dream. So so after I was done with parole, I decided to move to New York. I moved to New York. I ended up going through like this horrible relationship that was also, again, not supportive. And after he left, and he left me broken and damaged and all this so great stuff, he didn't just leave. You know, he wanted to make sure that he had broken me down and put me in my place. Told me that he preferred Spanish women, that I should bleach my skin, that I was only a pretty face. And that I didn't do enough. As far as like in life, I didn't do enough. Although
Shea, can I jump in?
Yes, yes.
Thanks. This is, I think, a really, really great story. And the points that you're hitting on that I don't want the audience to miss, and kind of all the great things that you've talked about, is consistently the idea of support, the idea of community, and then like the ideas of kind of society and societal pressures. And I want to let Ray and Donny jump in and come back to you. Ray and Donny, can you speak to both of those? Because Shea just talked about it. Sid talked about it, about having that friend who, you know, encouraged both of them. It's that friend that encouraged you to transition, the friend that encouraged you to do the talent show. Ray and Donny, can either of you speak to the support in your community, or where you found support from in your community? And then also that second part that Shea just talked about, of were there any things in the back of your mind about the programming of society that maybe impacted any kind of hesitance you may have had?
Yeah, sure. As far as society, I definitely went through what Sid and Shea went through as a kid, knowing that I was trans at 4 or 5 years old, telling people my name was a different name, you know, my mom yelling at me like, you're a girl, you know, what are you doing? Playing on women's soccer teams and different sports teams, just constantly trying to eventually just fit into the binary system in society, which ultimately just, I guess you just cave in, you know, it's hard to live your authentic self. But the person that really encouraged me to become who I am is one of my best friends. He's actually my drummer in my band right now, and he's also a trans man. And he came out and transitioned when he was 18 years old, and we've known each other since 3rd grade. And his name's Aiden, and he is one of the bravest people I know. I'm gonna like tear up a little bit, but having him in my life through like our 20s and through high school, he is somebody that has lived a trans life from high school, and just really encouraged me to always be who I am. And we always meet, like whether we're in a band or we kind of like not break up, but we come back to music. He's been in like every band projects I've ever created. So he's been a really big support. And also my fiance is also one of my greatest supports, because she's an advocate. She's also they, them, a non-binary person, and for trans rights. And yeah, I'm just very, very grateful to have these people in my life. So yeah.
Ray?
Yeah, thank you so much for your stories. I definitely identify with a lot of the points that you were making. Yeah, I grew up in a really pretty unsafe fundamentalist Pentecostal home. And so, yeah, the possibility of being trans, I knew there was something going on with me. I came out as queer in high school. I grew up in a place called Calgary, which is known for its giant rodeo. So yeah, I came out in the 90s in Alberta as queer, and that was pretty harrowing. I was in like an interracial lesbian relationship, and there was a lot of violence, and it was pretty scary. And yeah, I wanted to play music really badly, so, and there wasn't a lot of support there. So I moved to Vancouver when I was 19. My support came from my friends in high school. You know, when I was out as queer, that was a time where you could, you know, you would never want to tell any teacher or anything like that. Still, it's like that in most places, right? So it was always my friends. I don't have contact with most of my birth family. I talk to one person I'm blood related to regularly. And so, but for me, that was very freeing. It happened a long time ago, and there was many reasons behind it. I came out as trans when I first met some trans folks in Vancouver when I was 20. I met them when I was 19. So as soon as I met someone who was trans, I was like, oh, you can, you know, like you can do that. So I came out as FTM. I identified as male and went by he, him pronouns for over 10 years. Yeah, and at the same time, I realized I wanted to play country music. So I did a round of country music in my early 20s in Canada, which was very interesting. Part of it was, you know, singing about where I was from and my, you know, how I grew up and stuff like that. And I kind of, after about 10 years, I transitioned to more like indie pop, indie rock. I lived in Berlin for a while in Germany. So yeah, support came always from friends. Yeah, I always carried around the idea that I didn't have a family, but when I got very sick, I realized that I had a very, very big family, and all of my friends jumped in and supported me and kind of saved me over the last 3 years. So it was this big way of me seeing that support was coming from people I've known for 20 years, 15 years. Yeah, I came out as non-binary in 2012 when I met folks who went by they, them. I continued to have gender dysphoria when I was identifying as male. I think like the binary just didn't fit for me, like male, female. So yeah, I came out as using they, them pronouns. My physical transition, I mean, I call it the longest transition ever because it was like 18 years in, I had top surgery or something. And I don't know, like I've been microdosing on tea for 3 years. So my voice is a little bit different, but yeah, for me, it's very important. I think, you know, gender affirming surgery saves lives, and it really, really helped me to have top surgery before I got very sick. I was in the hospital and naked a lot around random people, you know, a lot. I was in the hospital for 1 year and 2 months straight, and I got out a year ago. And that was it was an interesting experience. I wouldn't have made it without my friends. Some of them came from across Canada and stayed where I was. I was in Victoria at the time. So yeah, I, you know, over and over, like what music was my way of communicating with people. And so it gave me this kind of life where I got to travel across Canada. I went to Europe a lot, the States sometimes, you know, so it sort of gave me this way of connecting with people. And then when I needed folks, they were there. And that was something that, yeah, I didn't know I knew I had it, but you don't know till you know. So yeah, so now, like I really, people ask me if my life would be different now if I was born now and came out as trans, and I say, well, do I have the same parents? Do I live in the same place? Because no, it wouldn't be different. You know, it would be the same thing growing up. So yeah, I think it's just so important to have all of these examples for youth of who they can grow up to be and how they can grow up. And so yeah, all of you folks' stories just feel so important, just all these different representations for youth and for anyone of any age to see different folks and how you can turn out, or, you know, anyway. And I love that we all have music in common. Like music is such a strong, it's such a strong thing. And I sang all over the world. I'm, you know, the most northern town in Norway. I'm like singing about being trans on stage, you know. It's very, it's interesting how singing can change someone's heart in a way that sometimes speaking doesn't. You know, you see it when you're on stage. So yeah, thank you so much y'all for sharing. I hope I addressed the points.
No, absolutely. I do want to ask, we are at 5:44. Are you all available to stay after the hour if we go over the hour? Because this has been such a good conversation, but I want to be respectful for your time. Okay. All right. Well, let's keep going. I want to hit on the music. And so that was just a really, really great way to end Array. And I want to maybe go to Sid, Shea, Donny, then back to you, Ray. Can you talk and just about how at the very beginning, Shea said that I'm an artist, I'm a songwriter, and I just so happen to be trans. Do you feel that your identity informs your music in any way, or is it just completely separate? Now I'll let you each speak to it.
Me, Sid,
Yep.
first. And thank you, everybody. Wow, what compelling stories. Just thank you for sharing your innermost selves and your stories with me. And It's an interesting question because I transitioned so late and I had 10 albums before I transitioned and sang and was known. I'm not Bruce Springsteen. I'm not a household name, but I have a name in the business. But and my music did identify me because it was my music and I wrote and sang my own songs all the time. But and it's about to be re-released, but I made my first album as Cidny, in 2020. And of course, it was the middle of the pandemic and, put it out anyway. And Donny, I relate to the voice thing. I had to adjust for a couple of years. And and that album, it's called Walking Through This World, and it's coming out again this year on a different label, on a real label. And but it was my first is Cidny, and it was themed around my transition. There's a song on there called The Gender Line, which is the only song on the album that actually addresses directly the subject matter. And but I wanted to address it. And I mean, I'm a love songwriter. I don't write protest songs or political songs or songs that are topical. I write about me and my life. But this particular song comes from, the title comes from a line in my one-person show, which I did a few years ago around the country. And anyway, so my music has, I mean, generally speaking, my music my gender does not inform my music, generally speaking, whether I was a female or a male. In fact, when I was a female, when I made my records as a female, I wouldn't use, in my early career, I did a couple times, like in the 70s, late 70s, I used pronouns, but I purposely never used a he or she in my songs. It was always you and me and I, because I was singing as a male, even though I was a female. So that's what I did in my early career. Now, with the exception of this last album and a couple of the songs, I'm a songwriter. I'm a songwriter. I'm a musician. I'm a singer. That's who I am. My gender doesn't really have a lot to do with it. And but because I am trans and because I have a presence and an audience and whatever, nowadays especially, I feel the need to address it more because of the divergence of culture now, where we're being vilified and targeted. You don't want to be in Nashville right now. I feel it's even more important to be informed, whether it's through my music or through my words, and to be more out and to be more vocal. So I'll stop there, but musically speaking, generally, it doesn't have to do with my gender, but I feel that it is important to address it in any way I can. And if it's music, it's music.
Shea, we'll go to you next. And I also want to just add that in the Q&A, just kind of to Sid's last point about, being in Nashville right now and kind of the temperature of the country, Noah wrote in the Q&A and said, I am a 17-year-old trans male. I came out at 12 and transitioned at 12. I've learned not to hide who I am, so I'm very open about being trans. I work with producers and will be releasing music soon, but my question is, do you get afraid of what people might say or do to you, or the possibility of hate crimes for being trans? Because that's what I'm most afraid of. And he's 17. Is there something, to this point that maybe you can say to Noah, and also about how your identity informs your music, if at all? That was
Was
for you.
that okay? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so I would speak to that particular question and say that, yeah, I believe we're all fearful. Getting on the stage for anyone is fearful. Presenting yourself to the world and being able to be judged, there's fear in that. But I believe that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power. And so when you reclaim that power and you're doing what you were born to do, you're using your God-given talent in order to change people's lives, whether to make them feel seen, heard, make them feel empowered. Our music has the power to change the world. So I would say move forward in that power and understand that, hey, we're all different and we were all created different for a reason. So don't look at your differences, look at what connects you to the world, and your music connects you to the world. So use your music, let your music tell your story. Unlike Sid, I believe that probably all my songs are protest songs, because my existence is an act of resistance. And so there's no song that I can make that won't be challenging these systems.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Donny, Ray.
Yeah, so just like Sid, I definitely being transgender does not really inform my songs. I am just a songwriter as well. I am a love songwriter as well too. But a lot of my songs are definitely about mental health and the struggle of being transgendered, of being authentic, living in my body, expressing myself, battling with suicide. So that is a lot of where my material comes from. But yeah, so yeah.
Ray.
Yeah. Coming out when I did, I found my first interviews were all "What is transgender?" and that was for years and years. And then there'd be interviews. "She thinks she's a man," would be like the headline. So I've kind of gotten to witness like being trans, watching people figure out what trans people are. Like there was the threat of not being known, and that was scary. And now the targeting of being what a trans person. Not that people targeting trans people really know what it is, but yeah, I think safety is really important. I traveled alone for many years. I would go alone to Australia. I'd go, by myself, just walking around somewhere in Poland in like an industrial, looking for the gay bar I'm supposed to be playing at, And I think bring a friend. I think I should have brought a friend to that. It's really real to feel like, I think being safe is really important. Being careful with what information you share online, where you live, stuff like that, your address, all that stuff, like it's an important thing to remember that, yeah, if you don't feel safe, maybe there's something to pay attention to, but at the same time, you should never limit your expression of yourself. I find being trans and coming out at the beginning of my career, it was freeing because nobody in the industry wanted me, and it let me just have this long career of doing whatever I want. I can switch genres, I can write whatever song I want. I'm always outside of the industry, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally, I like being like more small, independent. I like working with other artists and trying to make space. And I find that, in Canada, we're lucky because we have arts grants that support us. There's a bit more of a socialist safety net here, and I acknowledge that as a privilege. But yeah, I think it's just so meaningful what you can change by playing your music and being yourself. And I think that I was just thinking, people are scared about children right now a lot with trans stuff, but I wonder if that's because they know that the actual overall attitude is changing, and that if they don't change with that attitude, they are going to lose their children. So the fear comes that someone's coming to try and take your child, but your own lack of, ability to change is what's actually going to take your child from you. So this is like misplacing that onto drag performers, transgender folks, queer folks for being around children. It's actually like they know their children or their children's children. It's coming. There's an overall change coming. And I was just thinking that. So so thank you so much for your question. And it's so important. It's so great that you're making music and just being out there. It does so much and like a lot of people are going to see you. You're going to save lives, So just, keep doing it.
This is such a powerful conversation. I'm just so thankful for each one of you, Sid and Shea and Donny and Ray. I'm thankful to everybody who's watching, but this is such a vulnerable conversation, and just wanted to take a second to say that. So our next question that we have, and I like the order, if we could just keep going the way we've been going with Sid, Shea, Donny, then Ray. As a songwriter who happens to be trans, are there issues that you see from your perspective that none of us are really talking about, in the songwriting community and the musical community? So Sid, if you want to start.
I'm not quite sure where that is going. If they mean professionally, is it something that we're not talking about? I mean, and if the person wants to write more specifically while I'm talking, they can do that. But I think we just need to be clear that whether we're writing protest songs or love songs, that we're songwriters, that this is what we do. As she has said, this is what we're born to do. This is what we're going to do. And as Ray encouraged our young friend there, we can be afraid, but ultimately, and I've lived longer than all of you now, and I've tried to hide. Believe me, I've gone away and tried to hide and not do what I'm born to do. It doesn't work. Somewhere along the line, that creative force in me says, you got to write a show, you got to write a book, you got to write a song, you got to get out there. And it's like the universe or God, or however you want to express it, pulls you out to do what you're born to do, as she has said. And so I think for me, we are who we are, whether we're advocates or whether we want to stay behind the scenes and just write the songs. The value is the same. It's the music, it's the music coming from the heart, coming from the craft, coming from the soul, coming from that individual human who is different, as was stated, than anybody else. It's our voice. And our songs are our voice, whether we sing or not, And so I think that's what needs to be expressed here, that we're here because we're trans or non-binary, and we want to encourage other trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people to do what they're born to do. And whether it's silently or out in front of millions of people, I think, so I don't know if that answered the question, but that's what I got.
Before we move on would it be possible, actually, while we have you on this call, could you, as a Nashvilleian, I don't know if that's what you call yourselves, but as a person in Nashville, are you comfortable discussing the new drag law and the things that are happening, like with that in Tennessee? And
well, I've actually had to do interviews about it on local stuff, and I was involved. I don't know if you heard about the Love Rising concert that was here last Monday, and I spoke at that. I was invited to be a part of that and all that. It's terrible, and I'm not a Nashvilleian. I live here, but I'm from New England, and I'm sticking to it. But but I live here. I've lived here 3 times over the last 30 years. But I'm moving back to
I
New
don't-
England.
Okay, I get it. I
But
understand. They're lost.
you know, and it's this for varying reasons, but I got grandkids up there too. But the drag law is not the only law. Tennessee, and I'll try to be short here because I want to hear everybody else's answers about other stuff. And I can go on about this and I get really agitated because I'm really pissed off about it all. And but the drag queen law is a draconian law that actually affects me. I had to read the law because I was interviewed on NPR a few weeks ago about it. They said, we want your opinion about this. I thought, well, I better know what it's about. It's so loosely written that as of April 13th, April 1st, I'm sorry, as of 3 days from now, it will be illegal for me to perform in public in the state of Tennessee because I'm gender nonconforming, because I don't dress in my birth in the clothes of my birth. It's such a draconian law. It will not. Nobody's going to pull me off a stage probably if I play the Bluebird Cafe here in Nashville, which I'm slated to do in a few months. But, and obviously, like I think somebody else said, they're targeting drag queens, and if they didn't say it, because they're an easy target, and they're threatening. And I could go on about it, but anyway, it's going to be protested. There's going to be protests all over the place. It states that no, there can't be any drag shows in public where a minor could be present. So that means parades. It means Halloween. It means walking down the street. Technically, now the law is so loose, and it goes for trans men as well, because it says in the law, female and male impersonators. So even if you dress, even if you're not trans and you're, whatever. So that's one law. The other law is, and I'll be brief again, I'll try to be, is like 12 other states that are doing it in rapid succession. They have now banned transgender health care for minors. So Vanderbilt University here cannot treat kids under 18. The new law that's just starting to get going here is that they're going to deny health insurance for transgender care from any health provider, Blue Cross, the big ones in the States, the Blue Cross. If Blue Cross, and I'm just using that as an example, treats transgender people in California, or Missouri, or well, it wouldn't be Missouri, but, or, Colorado, they won't accept Blue Cross in Tennessee for healthcare. So it's getting so bad here in the state of Tennessee is at the forefront of the trans laws right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's draconian. There hopefully the AC, I think there's already lawsuits, the ACLU and all that stuff. There is great support here in the community. We had a wonderful event, the Love Rising thing last Monday, 20,000 people in the Bridgestone Arena, and wonderful artists, all of whom you would know, and speakers. And so there's great support here, but the state is, the state legislature is 88% Republican, not to get political, but and they're going to pass as many laws as they can possibly pass to push us out. Sorry, I get,
No, don't apologize for talking about reality. I mean, I have several trans youth students, and this isn't about me and my but thank you for telling us about that, and I'm sorry to have to ask you such painful questions. Um,
Well, this is what we're up. This is what we're up against, and it's spreading, and that's the problem, and that's why we all have to stay vocal. I'll just say that, and then I'll be
It's
quiet.
a good thing we write songs.
Exactly.
Before we move on to any more questions, Shea and then Donny and Ray, is there things, from your point of view as songwriters who happen to be trans that other people aren't talking about that you think folks should know, Shea?
Well, in my particular opinion, I don't understand how it's possible to take the rights of the American people and still ask them to pay taxes. So if there's no tax breaks for trans people, because clearly our living wage will change drastically, and it would force us into probably another deficit because there's no money flowing. And so if you're going to prevent queer people from, excuse me, from performing, then we don't have money to pay for housing, for healthcare, and probably food. So basically, how you eradicate us is to starve us, to deprive us of healthcare at all stages, to ostracize us, to demonize us, and on top of that, to allow us to be killed. So I'm wondering, why am I paying so much in taxes when I don't have the same rights as everyone else? Somebody make it make sense. And this is not the first time we've gone through this. So for a lot of people who are just coming into our community and just discovering themselves under a free spectrum, now you'll understand that this has happened before. This is Stonewall all over again. So when we talk about wearing the 3 articles of clothes to how you were born, I think is preposterous. I think it's so dated. I think it's caveman crazy, to the point of us trying to move forward. When we realize that we have robots doing most of the jobs now. So, if you're trying to get a job at McDonald's, just forget about it because robots have taken over that. And so when we are moving so much into the future, we'll be flying pretty soon without airplanes, and we're still debating about people being allowed to be themselves. And how does it jeopardize the freedom of anyone else by us being free? This is what freedom looks like. So when we fought so hard for freedom, and we're not the only ones that fought for freedom. Women fought for freedom. African Americans fought for freedom. Like we're constant, and now LGBT community is fighting for freedom. And if we allow one person to be unfreed or less free, it'll just only go to the fact that what we'll tolerate as a people. And if we stood up and said, okay, this is not my experience, but I do not agree that anyone should be ostracized or demonized or they should be eradicated. Okay, when we start speaking of eradication, we think of extermination as if we're some type of bugs bothering somebody. Where people mind their own business. We're not in your cis homes trying to tell you how to raise your kids. We're not trying to tell you what sexual positions to be in. We're not trying to tell you what type of jobs you can have. We're not trying to tell you what kind of sports you can play. We're not trying to tell you what bathrooms you can go to. When you just gotta pee, you gotta pee. Back in the day, we peed outside. So what's the big deal between, even if it was so, a male and a female using the same restroom? What's the problem?
With you.
Everybody's doing the same thing. We may be doing it a different way, but we're doing the same thing. So why do we hate people so much? And then we try to use this hate by saying, God wants me to hate you. It's preposterous. It's crazy. You know what I mean? When we talk about that God is love, what happens within any relationship, whether queer or non-queer, is love. So God is somewhere in there. I don't care what nobody say. And it's not your business to try to force anything upon me. My personal relationship with God is my own and it has nothing to do with you. And so what I do as a person that was born into this free society is I obey the laws and the laws of the land as well. And the laws of the land don't give a care about what we're doing. So why are these states taking such a dangerous stance and risking the lives of so many people when we're supposed to be fighting for the people? I just don't get it.
Preach. Preach.
Yes. Donny, Ray, anything
please.
to add to that?
I just like, yeah, the whole tax thing, it just like, I don't want to pay my taxes, you know? I mean, I know we can't really do that, but it's like, if I can't even be a citizen, if we can't even be a part of this world that you're creating, why are you taking our money, you know? But yeah, it's just, just that language and those bills that are going, it just like, is hitting me in my heart because it's our existence. It's such an attack, and it goes beyond drag. It goes into anybody just being authentic, you know? Yeah, I mean, people are gonna move, people are gonna, it's, you know, displacing people, you know? So it makes me angry. It makes me want to fight more. It makes me want to share. It makes me want to talk to allies. And, you know, we have to protest, and we have to continue to be visible and like do the work and do our, you know, live our passions, you know, still be songwriters and still show up and just not be afraid. We're existing, you know, there are kids being born every day that are part of our community. It's going to keep happening. This isn't going to go away.
Right.
Yeah, I've always said I don't have to have kids because there's always going to be more trans and queer people. I don't have to make them. They just show up. They just keep showing up every year. There's more of them. So to peers in the music community, what I would say for support, one general rule I have for myself is if I belong to a group and someone says something about it, if I don't feel safe, I don't necessarily have to say something. But if I don't belong to that group and I have privilege more than that group, then I have to say something. So talk to the people you love, because it's people, right? Talk to the people you love, have those hard conversations, you know, and it's not an age thing. Like, you know, we don't have to be ageist and say it's just older folks who are saying this, or, you know, just talk to the people you love. If someone says something about trans folks that seems a little bit like, hey, what are you talking? Just say, hey, what are you talking about? You know, have a conversation, especially if, you know, you don't belong to the transgender nonconforming community. Yeah, just same goes for, you know, like racism and stuff like that. Like in Canada, we actually have gender identity and gender expression on the Charter of Human Rights, which I know is like a huge thing, and it applies all over the country. Does that make it easier to be trans? Yes, like of course from a legal standpoint it does, but you know, as far as laws reach, they go for people whoever has citizenship gets rights. Maybe there's more rights if you're white, there's more rights if you're straight, you know? So even when there are rights, like, you know, fighting from that point, like I find it so difficult as it is now. So I think just the most important thing is just keep talking to people, because even though we have the Charter of Rights here, when I go to the hospital tomorrow, you know, what pronoun am I going to get? I don't really know. I never know what pronoun I'm going to get. My birth certificate says X on it for sex. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. There are babies here being born and you can assign your baby X sex when they're born. So it's legally, like, it's not going to hold any water because there's gonna be people coming in from the States. Their birth sex is X, like, you know, so it's kind of interesting. I think when people make wide, broad laws with room in them, that's on purpose. So it can be interpreted by law enforcement officers who are going to interpret them in the most oppressive way. And so within the trans communities, I think we need to really look at who has privilege in our communities, and be thinking about like sex workers' rights, you know, support for folks who are using substances, prison people who are in prisons, rights, stuff like that. Is like, that's like that's the point where it's going to hit. It always hits first, right? And it always hits hardest. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Yeah, just talk to the people you love about all these things if you can.
Thank you for that. Autumn, who sits on our board, is who submitted that question. Autumn Rose, she's also an amazing songwriter in her own right. And that ties me to our next question. So if Autumn's question was, how can your peers support you? And Ray, your response is just keep talking about it, talk in your communities and things of that sort. I want to take the question another step and say, what do you all believe that music industry organizations should be doing? So obviously you're here with SONA, and we are an advocacy organization that we're using our collective voices to defend and represent the songwriter community. But what does that look like for you all? What would you like an organization like a SONA, like a Recording Academy, like a National Music Publishers? What would you like industry organizations to do to advocate for the trans community? And let's go in reverse. So let's start Ray, Donny, Shea, Sid.
I think really basic things, you know, when you go to music unions and things like that, you look at venues and access, having all gender washrooms being discussed as an access point for when you're having shows is really important. I don't know. I think there could be maybe separate sections of awards for transgender nonconforming people. I think we face enough discrimination in the industry that there should be Grammys for subsections of that for trans folks. I actually believe that, because I think, yes, there are trans folks and non-binary folks winning Grammys, winning awards, having space, but I think there should be separate spaces made in honor of just how little space there really is. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Like for me, just kind of being more non-binary, the bathroom situation and venues is always challenging, confusing. But yeah, I would say definitely different award categories, but just like more representation in general, you know, because like we're amazing songwriters, you know what I mean? And I do feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping with information or just opportunities for shows, opportunities for licensing, opportunities to work with managers or publicists. It's hard, especially being like a local artist, to like really know what's happening. And it seems like a lot of people that do know what's happening are, you know, cisgendered white men that kind of control the situation. So just more advocacy and representation and like helping each other out, like, you know, talking to each other and giving each other opportunities and like sending each other resources of different shows, or this might be good for you and your genre, and just like working together and being collaborative.
And then Shea, you would be next, I think.
I would like to piggyback on that as well. I feel like I was thinking the same thing as Ray. Just like a couple months ago, I was thinking, and I had like an idea. I was like, okay, they're kicking us out of sports. They're trying to say that trans people shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't be doing that. So, you know, clearly we did have Kim Petras and Sam Smith that won the Grammy. But I was thinking that that itself is kind of typical. You know, we're talking about two cis passing white people, and I love them both dearly. But that is not moving us forward in the direction in which I think that we need to be going, when our most marginalized artists and people are still being overshadowed by this idea of that is what is acceptable. That is what is digestible by society, that we'll see this and we'll accept that because it looks good to us.
Mhm.
And so instead of having this fear mongering type of ideas that people like us who are maybe not as passable, maybe not as thin, maybe not as pale, have to endure being erased, being silenced, having our art being ignored. You know, it's like when we're being attacked in these areas, I feel like those things should be highlighted. Those artists, those particular artists should be highlighted. The most marginalized artists, if that's what you're afraid of, is Black trans women. Black trans women should be headlining a lot, and we don't see that. We see an exception, and there's always an exception to one rule, because I feel like we always have these seat fillers, and so that you can't be in this limelight, but we can do the next best thing, and we can get you a seat to attend. We can give you a seat to watch history being changed, but you'll never be able to make that history. And when it comes to like our organizations like this one and the Recording Academy, who I just joined, I think these ideas should be presented. Is that we should have our own category for some type of art, not being limited to not being a part of any other genre, but also having our own awards, because we already see the cis celebration already. We've been seeing it for years. It's nothing new. So when we start seeing some other folks who are maybe less acceptable in society's eyes being uplifted, because they're doing so much work underground, for the people, because our messaging, people can relate to our messaging, but if you don't see yourself being represented, you feel like it's not a possibility. And so we become our own possibility models. So what we're doing right now is we're proving that it can be done, and it'd be nice to have a little help.
Said.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I also want to say, I want to add ageism to that.
Oh.
And in terms of everything, because, I'm old now, but I'm still making music, but there's a couple things I want to say. And one is, and I'm really grateful for this panel, because we need to educate the powers that be. It's not, for me, it's not just about the category. Everything everybody said, I absolutely agree with. The categories, the bathrooms, the opportunities. But I want to speak to the head of the RIAA. I want to speak to the people at the top who don't get it, who don't understand. I want to go in and I want to sit down with them and say, let's talk. Let's talk about what it is to be transgender. Let's educate you just a little bit so that you can see that I'm not a threat and that my music is just as important as anybody else, And I've had the experience of being rejected because I am trans, as everybody here, I am sure, has at some level, and we are rejected because of a lot of what everybody's said. Where there's something that they don't want to tell the story. They don't want to talk. They don't want to say, oh, Cidny Bullens used to be Cindy Bullens. They don't want to tell that story. They just want the bottom line, or they want the headline. But I think some of the changes that have to be made have to come from the top down as well as the bathroom up. And I'm here to do that. I'm here. I volunteer. But so I agree with everybody, but I think there needs to be education for the top level people in this business.
I think it needs to be dismantled altogether. Altogether. Trying to educate these people that have been doing this job, and they're stubborn, they're stuck in their ways. I think if there is no trans representation in that particular field.
Oh, I agree with you. Totally agree with you. There should be
that.
trans representation.
Amen.
I'm just saying that what it is now, let's get in there.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I agree completely. I just like, I feel like in the government, if we had more trans people, a lot of these laws wouldn't be the same if we had trans people, although I would never
Totally.
try to push, a trans person into law enforcement, but there should be trans people every single place, because a lot of times these conversations that happen behind our back, wouldn't so much be happening so freely if there was a majority of trans people in those fields as well. Healthcare, law enforcement, our councils, our judges. I think at some point, the reason why we're so afraid, and I speak to those who are afraid, or to the past, like people were afraid of the white man because the white man was everywhere in all things. He had his hand in everything. And so when we have our hand in everything, it looks different. The atmosphere shifts different, because now people have to have some type of fear of assaulting a trans person, because a trans person could be your judge, could be your arresting officer.
Amen.
Who could be the ones that are passing the laws in your state. So it's time for us to get out of hiding. All of us, I mean, even the down low men and women that we sleep with. Stop me when you hear a lie. Those down low people that we sleep with, that sit back and they are in the position of privilege, because they can observe our freedoms without even letting the world know that they're a part of it. So we've allowed that for so long. And now it's time for people who want to reserve these rights, who want to observe these rights, to finally start voting. You don't have to come out. We're not asking you to come out. We still have this safe space policy that you come out when you're ready. But voting wise, secretly. Now, if you realize that, you're kind of questioning, you don't know where you are with it, then leave the option for freedom, just in case you decide down the road, which happens a whole lot. A lot of people who have bullied us in the past are now queer. So sometimes it's time for us to stop pointing the finger at people who don't look like you, because you never know their story. That could be you in a couple months. The questioning that you're going through is a phase that we've all been through. And so if you start allowing the freedom and allowing people to be free, we have a happier, healthy society. But when we start pushing people back into these boxes, into these corners, into these jails, because they don't look like us, then what we're doing is we're creating a dangerous atmosphere, not only for ourselves, but for people who aren't like us. Because one thing about it is trans and gender nonconforming people, queer people, we're not going to give up without a fight.
Woo,
Now, this is the cause of action, baby.
Amen.
Okay,
Amen.
Shea, you've gotten us hype. You've gotten us hype. And I
Where's the
think
protest?
we
I'll
are
meet you there.
at 6:30. And so what I want to do when you're talking about the fight, I also want to, talk about hope, because there is hope, because we're not giving up without a fight. So I want to swing it to Mandy for our final go around, because we're going to end on hope and the fight.
Yes.
The fight. Mandy.
Our final question for all y'all is, and I like how Shea flipped it. So we're gonna go the way Shea flipped it, with Ray, then Donny, then Shea, then Sid. What would you like to see happen in the future? And is there anything in particular that gives you hope? And please limit your response to one sentence or two at the most. Ray, you go. What would you like to see in the future, and what gives you hope?
I would like to see universal human rights. And so that means equality within the trans community as well, equal access to resources. And what gives me hope? I mean, look at us. We're all already living our dream of what we wanted to be. So if we're already living our dream, all of us right now, maybe people aren't treating us how we want to be treated, but look, we're already living there. We're already living in the dream. So I think to change people's hearts, we're all going to go out there and do our best. And that gives me hope.
Donny?
I would like to see just a universal understanding of like spectrums in general, that there is not a binary in any way, whether it's gender, mental illness, different challenges, neurodivergencies, that people can change. It's fluid in any direction. And my hope, I mean, I do have hope because of our allies and people that do support us. I do think we need to really step up right now. Like us, but also our allies, like true friends, and you know, showing up to vote for us, for our existence. It's really important right now.
Thank you, Donny. Shea?
Just piggybacking off of Donny a little bit too, as well. I would like to see our family step up. I would like to see our community come together more, because this is not the time for us to be divisive. You know, of course, we're not all going to go have the same thoughts, have the same strategies, but all of our strategies work when we work them together. Something I would like to see funding being stripped away from states like Tennessee. I realize they don't realize that what they're doing is creating a catastrophe. You know, because financially they're going to be in trouble, and they're going to be needing funding. And I say right now, for all these states that have taken away jobs, that have taken away futures and dreams and hopes, give them nooch to nada, give them nothing. And what I see in hope is our Big Fridas, our Sam Smiths, our Kim Petras, our Billy Porters of the world, our Shea Diamonds of the world. I see hope in these things being able to exist and continue to fight. Now, I know a lot of people, you know, they've been bored with protest music, but now is the time for that protest music. It's time to start highlighting the messages we've already put out there. For me, American Pie, I Am America, those songs right there, I Am Her, those songs right there, the whole EP speaks to what's going on right now and what needs to happen in the future. Like, we're not going to give up. We're not going to roll over and die. You know, just like they used to say in that movie, we don't die, we multiply. So while you're trying to sit up there and eradicate folks, you got to understand this, what you're seeing right now was the result of hate. That while women are pregnant with their babies, be careful of who you're talking about, because you'll mark your child. I've had a lot of family members who talked about me, and now their kids are queer. So I say be careful of the hate you put into the world, because God will teach you one way or another that he made all of us and that we're all the same and that we're all his children. Whether you believe in God or not, believe in a divine universe. And the divine universe didn't make no mistake. So all our brains are different, all our minds, our thoughts, everything are different. Do not push people into a box. Do not change us into robots, like how you're trying to run the McDonald's. We are free human beings with free thinking, and we were born into a free society. When will America be great? When you allow all people to be free.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whoa,
Yes. Yes.
whoa.
All right, Sid, I'd follow it up. What do you have?
I
What
can't
do-
follow
Good luck.
that. That's
Good
I
luck,
can't
Sid.
follow any of them, but I will say I want to say thank you to everybody, because this to me is this is the change. You know, just being here today with all of you, this is part of the change and part of the moving forward. I want to see radical acceptance be just acceptance. You know, I don't want it to be radical anymore, you know, but it is, we have to radically accept ourselves. And, but I want to see it be acceptance. And my hope, and I do believe, by the way, that the disruption, which I term as a positive, is each and every one of us. We have to disrupt before we get ahead. We have to disrupt the status quo. And that's what we are doing right now. But my hope, not and my hope, the way I see it, is all of you, but the youth. It's the people who stand up. It's the youth. We're not going back. I'll be long dead before, and I'm not that old, but I'm old. I'll be dead when what she is talking about happens. But I'm going to move every muscle of my body, every fiber of my being to start down that road. And my hope is the youth, because the youth aren't going back. You guys are not going back. Donny, Shea, Ray, whoever's young here, Mandy, you're all younger than me, so you're all young, but we're not going back. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many laws you pass. As Ray said, they're going to keep coming. They're just going to keep coming.
So what are they going to do? Lock us all up?
They're going to try.
The whole queer community?
Nope.
What are we going to do?
They could try, but they
can't
can't
do it. All right, everyone.
Thank you.
That, I want to give my sincere thanks on behalf of SONA to you, Ray, Sid, Shea, Donny. Thank you so much for this opportunity for us to pass the mic to you, to give a voice to the things that each of you are passionate about, and give us an opportunity to be educated, to understand how we can be allies as individuals and as a songwriting organization. So for those of you in the audience, this is just a taste of who SONA is. We are all songwriters. We are not some songwriters. We are the voice of all songwriters. And so if you are not a member of SONA, I hope that this conversation has at least made you interested, because these are the types of events that we have. I have dropped into the chat a link for you to get involved with SONA. You can support our advocacy efforts and our community fights to maintain your value, get you paid, have your fair wage, be represented, the laws that we talked about. There are ways for you to stay informed and stay up to date, to get community like this that is inclusive of your fellow songwriters and people who will advocate for you. And we have a ton of benefits and support to help you in your career, no matter what level you are or how long or how short you have been in the industry. So I really encourage you, on behalf of myself, Shea Lawson, and Mandy, my DE&I co-chair, our executive director, Michelle Lewis, and Kay Hanley, I want to thank all of you again. Thank you. Thank you to Debbie Hennessy, who also helped in putting this together and put hard work behind the scenes to bring all of you here today. And with that, everyone, good night. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you so
wanna
much
get
for
a-
having
Thank
this
you.
conversation.
Don't log out yet. I want to get a Zoom selfie. Everybody got to smile. Suzanne's been taking pictures, but I want to make sure that we're all smiling.
She wasn't being rude. She was taking pictures.
Yeah, she wasn't being rude. She was taking pictures.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me get my cursor in place. It is in place. So everybody smile. Got it.
All right.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Very
y'all so much.
inspiring.
So much.
Oh,
Great to
night.
meet you all.
Bye.
You too.